picking up from where we left off, the couple of things. I was just telling the story about John, right? One of my old sergeants that was at the police college with me. I'm just going to wrap that one up because we get cut off right at that point.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. You know what? It's a funny story. I'll do it again very quickly. If you missed the last podcast, we're doing a continuation. We ran out of card space. And
ran out of card space.
I ran out of card space. You know what?
The batteries didn't die.
You know what? Maybe you were talking too long. Maybe that was it. That was a long one. People, you know what? People really we got some great feedback on that. I'm glad that people enjoyed listening to us for an hour and 47 minutes. It was quite a long one.
Someone posted.
You know what? You must have missed it. It was just up in the last 3-4 days. Yeah, we put that one up. And joining us for part 2 is none other than Big John. Right? I've already screwed up and said your last name once. So I already ran it. So you know, we were supposed to blur that out. You know, right. Even I can miss the occasional security hazard. You know, Big John Spence, my long-time friend, is joining Coach Nick and I for this continuation of our last podcast. And you know what? I'm so glad that you're here, buddy.
You're right. I don't have it.
Yeah. See, you haven't seen. I think it's 139.
What the heck is going on?
Yeah.
I think it was on YouTube though. I don't know if did it go to SoundCloud?
You know what? It should have gone to SoundCloud. If it didn't, I'm going to.
I see it here. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't get the alert.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna quickly wrap up. First of all, John, I'd love to thank you for joining us today. We always love hearing your thoughts. Right? Thank you for being here.
One of them.
All right. And you know what, Coach Nick, fantastic seeing you again for another episode of Behind the Vault Door.
Yeah, it's always fun.
Always a good time. Okay, so you know, I believe we got cut off right about the point that I was talking about one of my old bosses, and of course. Once upon a time, the Canadian Gun Vault was a police officer, and I had been hired by the Hamilton Police Service. Yeah, I know. It's really difficult looking back to imagine that I did that for 20 years. Being employed by the Hamilton Police Service was one of the most amazing times in my life. Certainly a lot of great memories, a lot of challenges, some frustrating moments, but very rewarding nonetheless. But now, of course, I'm doing this. And but I love telling some of the old stories because people are always asking me about them. And you know, I remember a time when I went to the police college, and they were bringing people in during midterms to speak to the liaison officer, and I of course had no understanding of how I was about to, get verbally bitch slapped because I had
guaranteed you deserved it.
Well,
guaranteed.
You know what? I was failing to apply myself once again. Hadn't seen that on a credit card. Hadn't seen that on a report card for quite some time.
Really?
But sure enough, people are walking in to talk to the liaison officer. He's at a desk inside an office that's been set up for him at the Ontario Police College. He's sitting there, and people are coming out. They're smiling and they're saying, hey, it wasn't that bad. You know what? He said I did good, and he's and like some people are like revved right up. They're like, he said I'm doing amazing, and and so I'm like, yeah, okay. So I'm thinking I'm going in there, to have a little word with the liaison officer, and it's a sergeant, a former ERU member, right? So special teams, officer.
So he's got a lot of starch in his collar, doesn't he?
Well, I didn't know at the time, I just heard that there was, this gentleman, by the name of John, and I won't say his name to embarrass him, and I will maintain that, but I walked into this office and he sat me down, and I knew immediately that the tone of the conversation was not going to be a pleasant one. And I felt, that feeling that I used to get sitting in the vice principal's office, have a seat, close the door. Like that was the way things were done back then, right?
Go in there and play Legos now.
To intimidate a kid was not uncommon back then. But anyway, he saw me, said, sit down, and his eyes immediately went down to some papers he was kind of shuffling through, and I knew that it was not going to be a pleasant conversation. And of course, he put down his pen and he looked at me with this really stern look of displeasure and said, you get the lowest scores of anybody in this intake. You are the bottom of the barrel. You are dead last. What do you got to say for yourself, Morelli? And I looked at him and I shrugged my shoulders and I said, I guess somebody had to be there. And he lost. He said, get out of my office right now. Get out. Right. And, and that was the way things were done back then. It was not unusual to get yelled at by a boss. I remember a time when, people were a lot less sensitive than perhaps they are now.
That would be a human rights complaint now, I think.
Yeah. Are you kidding me? Right? He hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
I walked out of that office. It was not the first time I've been yelled at by a boss before. John, I'm sure you had the occasional boss.
Nobody's ever yelled at me.
Nobody's ever yelled at you, huh?
I'm really good at everything I do. I'm very personable, and I never talk back.
Well, I can tell you right now. I'll yell at you. You got to hold the mic closer to your face. God damn it! See?
Pardon.
You can't say God. It has to be an inclusive term now.
You know what? Shut up. Shut up. I was raised Catholic. I can say
So
God if
was
I
I.
want to. I'm
And I
not
wasn't serious.
You sure? All right. So now.
Use deity.
All right. What's that?
Deity.
Deity.
Yeah,
Whatever
inclusive deity term.
Whatever deity you may be praying to. Yeah. You know what? We could make fun of religions all day long. I'm sure we could get ourselves into a lot of trouble fast
that's
doing
probably
that.
not a good idea.
I was raised during a time when it was okay, right, to have comedy revolve around things like politics and race. And, I certainly remember the days of Eddie Murphy's Raw.
That's a great album.
Right?
Oh my God.
During a time when, if you were flipping through, a nudie mag as a young man in Canada, you had to put in the barbershop. You had to put up with black squares covering private parts, and the censorship was flying fast and hard back then. But, I grew up in it, so I didn't know any different. I remember back in elementary school, we discovered that the local variety store had thrown out a giant stack of them, which was like a gold mine.
You set up camp behind that store for 2 weeks.
You know what? For about 5 12-year-old boys, it was like we had won the lottery. I remember. We just happened to stumble on them. It's like, holy Jesus!
Hey, this is way better than health class.
You know what? It was honestly, it was unbelievable. If you could imagine a time before the internet when children were not exposed to nudity and racy graphics and the innuendo that exists now in today's Western culture, quite commonly, you could see it, everywhere. I remember walking out of this variety store and seeing like a torn page, float on by, and it was like, whoa, what was that? Was that a breast?
You just followed that,
right?
Until it hit the ground.
No, I looked down and I picked it up, and I was like, you didn't even have any concerns about diseases back then. Like, I just picked up this dirty, crumpled up piece of magazine.
Took it home, ironed it flat.
Well, no, then I immediately the detective in me came alive.
Detective Morelli,
right? Came alive, right?
Out searching for extra porn.
Even at 12, I was like, where'd this come from? And of course, my head pans immediately, in the area to a small space next to a dumpster, and there's a stack of porn magazines. And it's like, oh my God. And of course, I had some friends with me. We had been at the local variety store playing, Galaga until like 2 minutes before class.
Eating Black Bart gum?
Chewing, on Popeye, cigarette sticks, and eating that, spaghetti bubble gum.
Sticks.
What's that?
Candy sticks.
Candy sticks.
Oh yeah, with the powder.
Yeah. But you remember those? I can't even imagine the unhealthy things we ate as children. But there I was coming out of the store. There's like 2 minutes before the bell's about to ring. So we usually run back to the lineup that's walking into our elementary school, to go back to class. We got like 2 minutes, and we've just discovered like the winning lottery ticket for kids that had never seen porn before. And it was like, oh my God. And I remember there was a scramble. Well, we can't take it with us, right?
Let's stash it for later.
That was right. So we hid it.
Yep.
Right? We hid it. We put it away behind the dumpster in hopes that some other kids would not locate it and be the luckiest people on earth.
And let me guess, by the time you got there and you had to line up, your body automatically had to was social distancing you from the person in front of you.
There's no such thing as social distancing in the 80s. Right? Definitely, we drank out of the same fountains. Drinking out of the same glass, Coke bottles was totally the norm. Yep. Backwashing was considered poor form, but not able to stop you from drinking.
You wipe off the pop bottle with your T-shirt and hand it to the next guy.
Yeah, if you were raised proper, you might wipe the top of the bottle off. If you were hanging out with some of the guys I did, there might be some slobber still on it. You might see a bubble on the edge, and you'd hit it with your hand and say, "God damn it, Billy!" Right?
Billy.
Have some manners, right? You know, you'd wipe it off yourself, you know, and he might be offended by that. What, I got the cooties? Like, that was the way things were back then. But I remember we hit it. Okay, we hit it, and you know we knew it was wrong. Like I'll make no bones about it. I knew it was wrong. I was young. I've always known the difference between right and wrong. In my mind, it was very simple. You are not supposed to be in possession of these items. Right? And somehow they have magically, almost in divine form,
it was
appeared
a rite of passage
in front of me. Well, I mean, like we'd never seen porn before. There was that one Filipino kid that had a dad that had some beta tapes kicking around somewhere.
Beta tapes.
Well, he was worshipped as a god. He had beta,
back then. It's like it scrawled on the side of an empty coconut. Shell or something.
Yeah. Well, and my grandfather had in the garage. He had he had a poster girl with a transparent screening on it that would project an image of a bikini on a girl that you could lift up.
Was it for Unico tuna or something?
Yeah, it was actually. It was. You seem to know exactly what I'm talking about, right? They used to do,
fond memories of that.
They used to do these posters.
There's a few garages.
There's a few Italian garages out there that have this type of calendar poster. Like, I mean, there was only the one. I was like, geez, like, and so like that represented the bulk of what I had seen in terms of the female form and any exposure to pornography when I was, in my early 80s. During the early 80s when I was
in your early 80s.
Sorry. When I was in my,
how old are you?
When I was in my early teens in the early 80s.
Blue pill there, by the way.
Right? Yeah. So but I want to make it abundantly clear. I don't believe for one second that in today's day and age that we should objectify women. I think that it's important that women feel confident about their bodies and they do whatever they want with them. But
I feel very confident about women's bodies.
You know what? I'm sure you do. Right? One of these days, I'm going to hand out your address on this podcast. We're going to see how many girls show up. We're going to see how many girls show up.
Coach, say it jokingly.
Jokingly.
Don't worry.
It was an accident.
It
was an accident, John. So John's joining us today, and we're going to carry on with the conversation we had the other day. You guys keep on tuning into these podcasts. We love doing them for you. I've often laughed and said we're kind of like the Seinfeld of the gun world. We'll talk about anything, and quite honestly, it's a show about nothing. Right? And if people, appreciate the conversations and feel like they're right here with us, fantastic. I love that. I want to reach as many people as possible. So, carrying on, we've got John Spence joining us today. I'm going to just keep doing it now. I'm doing it. The cat's out of the bag. It doesn't matter now. The RCMP's onto them.
They already know.
They know, right? The plane has been circling over your house too.
I'm pretty sure they
right?
Helicopters constant.
Right? Helicopters. Right? You hear the crackling on your phone line lately? You've been getting a lot of feedback.
It's funny. Yeah. My phone has been beeping.
Oh, really?
For no reason sometimes.
During a call or just randomly?
No, just randomly.
That's kind of different.
But it's a really odd beep. It's not like not a notification beep. It's like a high-pitched beep.
Really? Wow.
When your kids get a hold of it and put some kind of app on there?
Maybe my kids can track me. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
whatever. If they want to see what I'm searching up, go ahead.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I've got a room of, some really law-abiding people here. We jokingly talk about the RCMP and their monitoring practices. Although, I think it's safe to say for everybody out there that's posting on social media, be really careful about the things that you post. I've always maintained that security should be our first priority. Don't ever give anything away. If you're going to be posting that you have firearms, be intelligent about it. Don't have a post, 20 posts back, a picture of your front of your house, perhaps with an address or, anything that would be a clear identifier.
Well, and I was going to say too, as of Friday, because there's so many more firearms that we were told weren't going to be added that are just being added to the FRT and are now deemed illegal and prohibited, and they're not making it public knowledge. It's people are coming upon these as happenstance. Yeah. So do not post a picture of you with a gun and say, hey, I just shot around a trap, because that gun you just shot around a trap with, like the Remington 870 pump,
might be illegal.
Might be illegal. You don't want to get yourself in hot water. And I think it's a pretty douchebag move from the Trudeau government, Bill Blair, to order the RCMP to do this without informing the public.
Well, we don't
like,
know.
Are you trying to catch us? Like that's kind of a shitty thing to do. But I mean, it's a Liberal government, so
to be fair, we don't know that we don't know that the parties involved that obviously have some form of remote access. That are making these amendments to the FRT have been given instruction by Bill Blair. To be fair, we don't know exactly because they haven't told us anything.
Exactly.
I think that it's really important to note that this government has once again, amongst all the other shady things that they've been up to, up to and including asking for unlimited spending power until 2021, right as the height of fear had grown in the pandemic here. Amongst all those other things that they've done in the past and the things that they're still continuing to do today, we've got a government that has just up and decided to evidently add 250 firearms to the 1,500 that they already put on a prohibition list impacting only legal gun owners in this country. So if you can imagine, 1,500 types of firearms and or their variants have been banned, and they're legally owned by a number of people that use them for sporting and recreational purposes. They've never done anything wrong by sheer virtue of the fact that they still have their license. They're model citizens, and these people now find themselves to be in possession of items that, if not turned in for destruction, according to the law, could result in, penalties up to and including, prison time. Like, forget going to court and spending $60,000 your own money just to find out that the government has screwed you over. But like, you could actually face prison time. And so, they're making changes when they're not notifying anybody. There certainly has been a lot of controversy surrounding the OIC, the Use of Order in Council, to push this law through without any parliamentary debate. I think a lot of people are starting to see exactly what's going on here now. More and more people are becoming aware. Why would you debate
something you can't win?
Yeah, well, not using facts. They certainly won't. They won't be able to do that using facts, because when you look at the facts, nobody wants this. None of the studies indicate that it's necessary or that it'll improve public safety.
People who want it.
There's about 6 people,
and they're the ones making the decisions.
Yeah, and that's not cool, because you know what? If it can apply to firearms, it can apply to anything. And that's really something.
Why
I
do
think
we not have property rights? So this is something that needs to be addressed in this country 100%. Right away.
You know what? I think it's the very first thing we should do once we install a good conservative government in the future. We should enshrine property rights, not just firearm property rights, like all property rights. What people are completely unaware of is the house that you sit in is not yours according to the law. It's not. It's property. It's property of the Queen. And it's not just firearms. Like, you're not entitled to anything of yours if the government should up and decide to take it. And this government, of all governments, Canadian governments, is probably more likely to see stuff than ever before, it seems. Like, they push this on through without any parliamentary debate. There certainly hasn't been much conversation, meaningful conversation. They say there is. I love the way the Liberal Party loves to talk about things like, we've had meaningful discussions. We've included all the stakeholders. No, they haven't. They shut them down. The minute that they start to speak out and to reveal, to people that there are facts involved here that are being ignored, that there will be no improvement to public safety, they get shut down. Sit down, be quiet. I didn't bring you here to argue. And it's like, whoa, you know what? I'm just raising a valid point and a fact. And nope, you're disturbing this meeting and these proceedings. We'll ask you to leave. If you speak out again, we're going to ask you to leave. Like, I've been to these town hall meetings where when people raise like legitimate issues, not even in an overly passionate way, they just say, look, like, the crimes aren't being committed by anybody that has a gun legally, and people are turning around, and saying, be quiet, guns kill people. And, it's like, no, hold on. I'm just here to say my piece. And they're being shut down. Like, people don't realize how quickly this Liberal government seems intent on silencing anyone that disagrees with them.
Because they don't know how to deal with it. They're like the little kid. Yeah. Doesn't get his way. Yeah. Right? They throw a temper tantrum. Yeah. As opposed to acting like an adult, and that goes for anybody who's a Liberal out there, because I really don't give a rat's ass if I offend you. Learn to deal with adversity. Learn to deal with differing opinions.
Well, that's something I think that is completely absent today. And quite honestly, I see them pushing things on through, and to know that to do it secretly, like how shady is that? And to have someone just this morning send me a message saying, I finally got one, sent me a message with a photo attached showing this gentleman, you know, a proud Canadian hunter. He's bagged his first turkey and he is so excited, and he did it with a Deeria Mark 12, right? Shotgun, which is, you know, a modern sporting shotgun, you know, and it's got that classic AR styling to it, and it's not what you would traditionally associate with the turkey hunt. It's not a side-by-side double-barrel 12-gauge. This thing is a modern sporting shotgun, and what the Liberals would definitely characterize as an assault shotgun, you know, or, you know, something we shouldn't have. It's too dangerous to own. So
because of the way it looks.
Yeah, based on the way it looks. It's functionally no different than any other semi-automatic shotgun. And it can, you know, when it's used for hunting purposes in Ontario, it's limited to 3 rounds. And so here's this guy out there with this, you know, a Turkish-made semi-automatic shotgun. He's gone the modern route to take, you know, his first game bird, right? Like to put a turkey dinner on the family table. Like, I mean, to take how much work goes into grabbing a turkey. They're apparently a really smart bird. They see everything. If you cover yourself in camouflage and wear a giant, you know, net over you, if they see like a glimmer of a bracelet, they're gone. Like, I mean, if they're 50, 60 yards away from you, they'll see it and they take off. So it's a lot of work to call in a turkey, and to be able to bag one and put it on the family table is a real rite of passage for many Canadian hunters. So this guy's decided to use this modern sporting shotgun to do it. And he's very proud of himself, and he's done everything correct. He's gotten a license. He's gotten his hunting license. He's I'm sure, you know, always obeying the law. And he sends me this picture, and I'm like, man, don't put that up on your page. They just became illegal. Like I hold it. Like you might be in possession of a prohibited item. They have like very quietly changed the rules overnight, and you were probably in transit to your turkey spot when it all happened. Like, take that down. Here's a guy that can theoretically be charged with breaking the law, like transporting a prohibited firearm, and he doesn't even know it.
Well, I was going to say, you get charged with something you didn't know existed.
Well, you know, you'd have to.
Has anybody received anything?
Nothing official.
Nope. For like my prohibited weapons now, I haven't received a letter in the mail saying, "Hey, this is prohibited. You can't do anything with it. You can't take it anywhere." Nobody said anything to me.
Well, they're gonna have.
They just assume I'm listening to the news and paying attention.
But we don't have. The general public doesn't have access to that FRT database.
No, the general public does not.
Right. So how would probably 99% of firearm owners in Canada even be privy to that information unless it's provided by a retailer or a wholesaler that does have access and whatever the access you need to get into the FRT database?
I'm sure they're going to say their reasoning was we wanted to update it first. They should have notified anyone that had access that it would be happening to avoid confusion. I'm sure they're, you know, like all the other things I've seen this Liberal government do, they're very fond of doing things quietly and behind closed doors, and then letting the public find out after, you know, the barn door has been opened. You know, the $10.5 million Cotter payment comes to mind. You know, but definitely to secretly, you know, change the classification of firearms. And I'll tell you something. When I saw Justin Trudeau being spoken to by the media back in like 2015, he when asked about firearms and gun control, he said a lot can be done with classifications. And I got to tell you, for anybody that hasn't been listening to our podcast or hasn't been watching the,
he also said he wasn't going to take guns.
Yeah, he also said he wasn't going to take guns. That was even earlier. But obviously somewhere along the way he changed his mind.
Take them. Somebody else is going to take them. He's just going to tell them to take them.
Yeah.
He just wants to be the nice guy to go sit in that UN seat, like that meme that's going around.
Oh yeah,
sitting in the UN chair while he watches the chair label Canada burning.
The Canadian armchair is on fire.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you haven't figured it out yet, folks, this Liberal government is literally setting this country aflame. We've got the economy in the dumpster. Free speech is under attack. They're arbitrarily taking people's private property, I don't care what it is, without warning and without justification. I mean, we should all be very concerned about some of the things we're seeing. And this is where I want to ask John, and I'll ask you to bring that thing, right? Bring that up.
Yes.
All right. John, what's your take on everything you've seen happening? Like, I mean, just feel free to, you know, share with our audience what it is that's on your mind. Like, I mean, anything, the guns, the economy, anything that stands out in your brain is like something that is important to you. Because you know what, I'm interested to know your take, because this is where you take the conversation.
Here, I want to say something right now, because I have perhaps said a few things about my good pal Doug Ford in the past, maybe referring to him as Dofo and thinking he was an idiot. But I have to say he's been handling this situation shockingly well.
Nice. Are you backpedaling on Doug?
Tip of the hat to him. No, I still think he got in. He got the nomination.
Yep. In
my opinion, illegally.
Yeah.
Well, you can't open up the vote after the vote's closed.
Hey man, you follow these things pretty closely. I defer to your good judgment. You tell me about it.
But anyways, I digress. Let's leave that behind. He's doing a good job. Now, the ass clown circus here that we got going with these half-witted retards, and I'm going to say that because they are
mentally challenged.
Half-witted retards. Can't just take my shit. Come on, really? You can't just take my stuff. And what's their plan for taking this stuff back? Because I don't know about you, but I'm not getting in line to return anything until the day before I have to. I'll be there at 11:59 in line with 700 million other people all waiting to get their shit processed. What are they going to do? How are they going to address it? Are they going to come knocking on my door saying, "Are you? Well, what do they do when they come to my door?" Well, I still have 6 months. It's my friend. I want to hug it and cuddle it and squeeze it and love it forever. Like, what are they going to do? I don't understand the logic behind this.
Well, in New Zealand, they've gotten a very low compliance rate. Like, as far as I'm concerned, like many things the Liberal government does, they like to run little pilot projects. They like to float up little balloons with ideas in it and see how the public reacts. For the people in the firearm community that haven't figured it out yet, they're very fond, you know, floating ideas out there to gauge our reaction. You know, as soon as they included the shotgun guys in this whole debate, as it relates to taking firearms from people, the hunting and sportsman crowd, the Claybusters, they came alive, and
they should have been alive months and months and months
absolutely.
ago.
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
And what is, like, we had that last petition where it was C-68 or whatever the heck it was, and we had that giant petition against that horse crap, and you know, didn't he say, and I could be remembering wrong, that any petition that receives 100,000 signatures should be addressed?
Enough to stop law.
Like, so he said, though, I may be wrong. Maybe I just heard this.
I don't remember hearing that. But
I know what you're talking about. There's been a clearly defined number of people that sign on in a petition that can cause an abrupt halt to something.
Is that in law though? Is that in legislation?
I don't think. I think it's an kind of a.
It's a general guideline.
It's
so in other words, they can move the goalposts to whatever suits them.
They can do whatever they want.
Right.
All right.
When you're on the 1 yard line, they add an extra 20.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a standard practice from this Liberal government. They love to continuously move the goalposts. For everybody out there though that thought that they were only coming after the assault rifles, and your Kriegoffs and your beautiful, Browning over and under shotgun wouldn't eventually be caught up in this mess, I would encourage all of you listening to please get involved. Sign the petitions, call your member of parliament, join the lobby groups in their fight for your rights. There is going to be a lawsuit. I understand there's going to be a charter challenge, being initiated by the CCFR and backed by the other groups. We definitely got to elect a good conservative leader. I think is really important, and we talked about that in the last podcast. I think that ultimately it's going to boil down to, voting for the guy we need, not the guy we want. Whoever has the best chances of winning the election is the guy that we should vote for, the one that has the most broad appeal to a number of voters. I think that that's the guy that we're going to want. And if his platform isn't exactly to your liking, and I'm going to pull a page out of Podcast Brian's book here, I'm going to say, hold your nose, do the thing that's right for you and the community and for your country.
But no, not just to be devil's advocate here is, hasn't holding our nose and voting for the best of the turds what got us where we are right now?
Well,
We got to stop the liberal machine though, and that
to address the whole system needs to.
Oh yeah,
down
absolutely.
We need a reboot. We need a reboot.
Yep.
But you
It's
need
not
somebody
working.
in there that will be open to rebooting certain aspects of it that really need to be rebooted.
I've said it again. You need me dictator. Put me in charge, dictator. We'll change. I'll rip the system down and build it back up, and I'll walk away.
Hey, will you?
Oh yeah, I walk away.
You put on.
I want to deal with this horse shit.
You know what?
I hate people.
You know what?
I'm like 80% hermit. The only time I come out is to come here.
You know what? So you think you could put on the Infinity Gauntlet and take it off?
No problem.
I like that. Well,
I'm not a greedy man. I don't care.
Power corrupts.
Whatever. You have to care about the power. I don't care about
As
it.
long as I'm the Minister of Education, I'll be fine.
You think I want to scratch and claw my way to middle management anywhere? I've never gone after promotion ever because I don't care.
Yeah.
You know what?
Well, you think I want more hassle? The only reason I do it is because it needs to be done.
Yeah.
Somebody needs their ass whooped,
Yep.
and they need it whooped hard.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
it's
Do we
fun-
have recall? Like, can we say, you suck, we want your ass out? There's got to... Do we have that?
The mechanism that is known as a vote of non-confidence would seem to
we don't
perhaps
get to
address
vote for that. That's
got to come
clown circus.
That's
They vote for that.
Yeah, federal level.
That comes from our representation. We voted them in.
I mean, if I get 500,000 signatures on a piece of paper saying that this government sucks donkey balls,
yeah.
they should have to address that.
You know what? I don't know that anybody would sponsor a petition called, liberals are donkey
Do the
balls.
liberals suck donkey balls?
They suck donkey
Sign
balls.
the petition,
Sign
please.
the petition. Actually, it's not a bad idea. I bet you it would get some good attention. Right? That might go viral. Although it wouldn't even matter because at this stage, just got to throw on the tinfoil hat.
They
for
just
a
throw
second.
the order in council out and get rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sketchy.
exactly.
Sketchy.
Just, you know what? Orders in council. Like, I mean, let's start signing executive orders. Like, I mean, anybody who's ever been exposed to that kind of activity, executive orders are used very sparingly in the U.S. because of the way it looks. And, some people may argue, well, that's not true. There's been lots of them. I mean, the OIC was meant to be used to make small amendments to things like law and for stuff that's already gone through parliamentary process, been, subject to healthy debate.
Something that comes up after the fact that maybe they didn't plan for or weren't aware of. Or...
Well, like if you decided that you were, after a healthy discussion and debate regarding, how big a bore on a gun can be, the maximum, size bore is 20 millimeters, and you don't realize that would include shotguns with the choke removed, like that would be something that you figured out later, and you'd say, oh, geez, we didn't realize that law wasn't meant for shotguns. That was meant for 20 millimeter rifles, that might exceed 10,000 joules of energy. What we will make an exception for, any devices that are not, rifle. Right?
But no, because they want the Liberal Party wants to save face and virtue signal again, so they won't admit that they made a mistake in the wording of the legislation. We'll just go ahead and ban a whole bunch of more shit to make it look good and appeal to the people who are supporting us and supporting that venture.
Well, they don't
want to look bad.
They're clearly capable of making mistakes. I mean, like if you look,
look at the history.
If you look at the history, and if you look at this particular piece of legislation, some stuff is really shady and actually quite intelligent. It's amazing how in law, with the change of one word, you can completely. You cannot ban, a gun. You cannot ban a non-restricted firearm unless, in the opinion of, the Attorney General. Right, it's something that can't be used for sporting purposes or recreational purposes that are, legitimate. Like, I mean, in the opinion. So basically, the law comes down to one person's opinion, because you could have all the evidence in the world that says that there's no merit in doing this, no improvement to public safety. It's going to be a colossal fucking waste of taxpayers' dollars, and it's going to completely fail to address the issue of crime. But we're going to do it anyway because they feel, in their opinion, there's no legitimate purpose.
Well, interestingly enough, I'm not surprised the Liberals being left and using the order of council, because the Obama administration, who was wholeheartedly left, set the record for the amount of executive orders signed by a president.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, so there's a number that they can do, and that's it?
No. there was a number.
Yeah.
He holds that number now. There's not a limit to my knowledge.
Okay.
I'm just saying, trying to draw a comparison between left in south of the border and left north of the border, and using those powers, right? Like,
yeah, you know, but just the same, you always have to be cautious. And I mean, anybody that's listening to this, I don't care whether you like guns or not, you always have to be cautious of leaders that start to arbitrarily and unilaterally make changes in law.
those are big words for you. Hey, good for you.
You know, like that. I was playing Scrabble the
John,
other day.
were
The thesaurus, the word a day.
You know
Is
what? I got my pocket thesaurus right here for you. This is what happens when we invite John into the conversation. John, so like,
I'm a freaking ray of sunshine. And you love
yeah, you know what? I love when you come out because I never know what's going to happen next.
It's a little bit of the ADD going on.
You know what?
Squirrel.
Bear, as Bugsy would say. Right? But okay, so like, what do you think about the idea of them just banning guns with the waving of a magic wand, and overnight, you know, you could potentially become a criminal without even knowing it?
It's bullshit.
It's total bullshit.
Yeah.
Right?
Can't happen. No
Yeah.
debate. Come on, really?
And I think the majority. See, the funny thing is, I think the majority of gun owners in Canada would agree to that not happening, even if it had nothing to do with guns. So if they decide to use an order in council to ban something that didn't affect gun owners but infected another chunk of society, they would still, the gun owners would be saying, hey, wait, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
We do
Even
so
though it
much other stuff. That's the thing. There's so much crossover. Like,
Forget
what
the
are they gonna ban?
crossover.
Okay, let's say we're going to ban ATVs because they kill way more people than guns. Way
Whatever.
more.
It could be something totally.
But how many gun owners are also ATV
But
owners?
that's the thing. I'm saying look at it from the standpoint that they want to ban something that's going to affect a huge section of society, that there's no crossover, there's no relation to the gun culture at all. Gun people would still say, hey, that's wrong. The majority of gun people are saying, like, no, you can't be doing that. I don't care that it doesn't affect me. I don't care that I'm not interested in that. You still shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just because it's guns. Like,
Exactly.
there's so many people in this country that don't understand
even
it.
know this is going on.
But
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Well, some of them do, and I got to tell you, I'll bring this up very quickly. I was at a dear friend's last night, and her brother and his wife came over, and in a very short period of time, I realized, you know, after listening to them speak, that they might be, you know, conservatively minded, and so, you know, they seem to be making mention and reference to some things going on in the news. And, you know, I kind of looked at them and said, have you been watching, you know, the parliamentary sessions? And I saw like the eye twitch, and it was like, I'm not sure, you know, and I began to have, you know, some more dialogue, and I realized very quickly that they are completely aware, like this wonderful couple, Terry and Joanne, completely aware of a lot of things that are going on. And at one point I looked at Joanne, and I mean, I said, we watch the same news, don't we? And she's like, yep. All right. It's like, okay, so please tell me you're voting conservative. You know, I'm not telling you how to vote. I hadn't met these people before, and I said I don't mean to overstep, and I'm not saying that you should vote the way I tell you to, but like, I mean, please tell me you're voting conservative. And they both looked at me and said, we haven't voted in years. For what? For what? Like, why would we vote? It's all the same shit. And listening to this couple, this couple, they're like, it's all the same shit. And so to know that there are people out there that are aware of what's going on, and they just are refusing to vote because they don't feel that any party, you know, meets their needs. Well, I'm here to tell you right now that we have to have people in office running our government. It might as well be one that is not completely hostile to a traditional Canadian way of life. You know, freedom, the ability to speak freely, you know, the ability to not worry that the government is going to suddenly change laws that could deprive you of tens of thousands of dollars, and in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of privately owned legal property. Like, I mean, and we could bust off into how the mindset can bleed easily into other areas. You mentioned ATVs. I know guys that they wouldn't own an ATV if they didn't hunt. What's the point? I'm not going out into the bush just for a drive out in the bush. I'm trying to get my family dinner. I'll do it, you know, 3-4 times a year. You know, maybe or the other kind of people that, you know, will own those kinds of vehicles to go deep into the bush. You know, like who's to say that they're not going to ban recreational vehicles like ATVs? Who's going to say right now that
I think they should ban motorcycles.
Well, you know, I was just about to get into motorcycles. You know what? Like, to control those deadly devices that every year are responsible for killing, you know, however many, right, Canadians and North Americans, people are rolling around on motorcycles getting killed all the time. There really isn't any need to be rolling around in a device that doesn't protect you from impact. No more motorcycles.
I think they're good because it keeps the organ supply flowing.
Yeah.
I might need a liver one.
Well, I can tell you right now.
It could be considered natural selection to a certain extent.
Like if you're a motorcycle owner and you're listening to this.
Mark drives a motorcycle.
I ride a motorcycle. Yeah, but you know what, though? It's amazing how you can kind of make the transition to the other arguments, right? I own a motorcycle. I love motorcycling. It's been an enormous part of my life.
It's because you like that thing between your legs that vibrates.
You know what?
Yep.
I'm not touching
I'm sure
that. I'm not
See,
touching
John
that one with a
agrees with me.
10-foot pole. I got some stories I could tell you, but we'll talk about that when I'm done the recording. No. All right.
No, we're not
right?
talking about anything like that.
All right. So, no, but you know what?
Wrong group.
Right? You know what? Where's that cattle prod? Right?
Want me to get it?
No, leave it in the barn. Leave it in the barn. I don't want to see that thing out. Don't you dare. All right. So I ride a motorcycle, and you know what? I've ridden a motorcycle for years. One of the things I always knew about motorcycles were that they're completely dangerous. Piece of equipment. They are. It's a dangerous machine. Being out there in the public, especially now with people with their heads down in their laps, looking at cell phones, breaking the law, you may get crushed as a motorcycle rider out there. But I mean, if you obey the law and you think a little bit ahead and you drive defensively, you can stay alive out there. But could you imagine if the government all at once decided that they were going to completely eliminate motorcycle ownership from the country? You know what? They're dangerous. A lot of people die. There's really no point in them. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that right away. Right? They wouldn't come after all motorcycles. What they would say is first, you know what? The race bikes are responsible for the deaths. They're the ones going the fastest.
You don't need more than 750 cc's.
You don't need more than 750 cc's. We're going to put a governor on that motorcycle, just so we can sell it here and collect a little tax money on it. But we're going to put a governor that restricts your horsepower to 150 instead of 185. And then these are the practices that have been adopted.
And you're going to pay a really high amount of insurance.
Oh yeah, you're going to pay a ridiculous insurance price, premium price, and it's amazing. Going back to the governors, these kinds of mindsets, and if you look at where they have, emissions restrictions that, also happen to include some ignition timing retardation, all right, to limit the horsepower on your motorcycle. These are the kinds of things we see coming out of California.
Yep.
Do we really want to model ourselves after California?
Well, no, but what I'm saying, though, is that liberal mindset that deprives people of the ability to enjoy something fully is something that we see in these blue states in the United States. Where,
let me just add to your comment about enjoy something fully, but not infringing and not hampering and not taking away or overstepping the bounds in the way somebody else enjoys their life and chooses to live their life, because that's a big part of it.
Absolutely.
And that fails to get mentioned. It's like majority of people don't know that their neighbor has guns.
Yeah.
They don't know when they go to the gun range. They don't know when they come home. They might know if they've gone hunting, if they see a carcass in the back of their pickup. But for the most part,
I like to make sure my neighbors know. I strip down naked and I run across the lawn with my guns hanging above my head, screaming, so that everybody's aware. That I don't want any surprises.
There are security issues to owning firearms in this country. A lot of people, typically have not shared with their neighbors or their friends. It's been very unpopular at times, to be a gun owner in this country. I remember the 90s. I had a drink thrown right in my face at a party because somebody made the mistake of telling this young lady next to me.
That wasn't why.
All right. Well,
use that as an excuse all you want.
Well, this one happened too. So there I am at a party, and this young lady.
Look her in the eyes when you speak to her next time.
You know what? I'm having a conversation with a group of people. I'm in a mixed social setting, and when I say that, I mean there's people there I don't know, and I couldn't believe it. This girl, right next to me, she suddenly turns to me. She's having a conversation in the group next to me. She turns to me, right? She goes, "You own guns?" Right, and I was blown away. I didn't realize one of my friends had made the mistake of telling his liberal friend. Was
this a university party?
Yeah, she was. You know what? It was. And I'm having a conversation, and she just turns to me suddenly, and I see her out of the corner of my eye turning on me, and she goes, you have guns? And I looked at her and I said, well, yeah. And I hadn't even got the yes completely out of my mouth yet. And the drink, complete with ice cubes, smashed right into my face, and she stormed
what kind
off.
of drink has ice cubes in it?
You know what? Whatever it was tasty. It was tasty. And you know what? I managed to track that young lady down a little bit later and have a good conversation with her. And I convinced her.
I bet you did.
I feel like this is like a Bill Cosby story.
You know what?
How many drinks later did this occur?
I convinced her in dialogue. Before you guys paint me up to be a lecherous, roofie dropping, predator. Go to hell to both of you. I was always taught to be diplomatic and respectful of people's feelings. I approached that young lady afterwards, and you know what? Like you guys, I asked her, so what was it that I got an opportunity to taste? Like, what was that? What drink was that?
So clearly she was attractive.
Right? You know what? She was attractive.
Yeah. Gee, what a surprise that is.
All women are beautiful, okay? Listen, she was a lovely young lady. Of course, you can throw me the bird. It's a good thing this is radio.
I'd do it. Hey, I'd do it if it was on camera
you
too.
would too. But there and you know what? I looked at her, right, and she was like pacing in the corner,
banging for him.
Right? She was.
Oh, yeah.
She was. I'm not gonna lie. She was a good-looking girl.
Is that a verb or is that an adjective right now?
You know what?
It's a proverbial adnoun.
You know what? Listen.
It's a dangling participle.
You know what?
It wasn't dangling.
Okay, all right. So I approached this young lady.
Okay, we should have done this without the microphone.
You know what? It's perfect. I want to tell the story. So just to finish it off very quickly, I looked at this young lady and I said, hi. You know what? That was uncalled for. And she looked at me and she shook her head and I went, like,
was she walking catatonically in the corner in the fetal position?
She was pacing.
Yeah, you triggered, man.
Right?
Stay away from that shit.
We're talking the early 90s, and obviously, she had formulated a very strong opinion about firearm owners in this country, whether she had read
mental
something,
health
whether she experienced
right
there. Like I just looked at her and I said, look, that was uncalled for, and she shook her head, and I went, look, you know what? I don't know who you are. I don't know what kind of night you've had. I don't know why you don't like guns, and that's fine. Not everybody does. But, you can't throw drinks in people's faces for that. And she said she was sorry, right? She apologized. No, she apologized. And she said, you know what? Just guns kill people, And how could you, I thought you were a nice guy. And, she met me earlier in the night, and I was playing cool, and I was talking to somebody right next to her. Right? Because, you know what? I was hoping to have some conversation with her at some point.
You were hoping to have something. It was a little more in conversation.
How are you going to have conversation?
Listen,
you can't have conversation unless you get close enough to talk, okay? And
conversation comes afterwards.
We were not practicing social distancing. And, I was hoping to talk to her. The last thing I was hoping for was, I was going to turn to her at some point and nudge her and start a conversation. But she beat me to it. But unfortunately, she started with, the topic of how much she dislikes guns and throwing a drink. Now, I did manage to calm her down. And, not that she needed to be calmed down by me. But, though I talked to her and she calmed down already. And, we started to have a little bit of talk. And then I explained to her that, I don't have one in my car. I'm not carrying one loaded in my pants. That's not the Canadian way of doing things.
I'm gonna let that go. That was just silver platter right there.
Come on.
That's too easy.
I don't have a loaded one in my pants.
That's too easy.
You know what? Hey, listen, it gave me an opportunity to point to my waistband and say, look, I'm not carrying one, so don't be afraid. So right, and that's it, right. Well, no, she says guns kill people, and I said, yeah, but there's like a large number of people in this country that get a license the way you get a car license, and then they get the guns registered to their names, and they only go to the range and shoot them, and really the only thing they're killing out there is paper, and they're but what if? And I'm
cars
saying,
kill people.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, what if I understand where you're coming from. let's look at the numbers. Like, how many people overall are killed in Canada every year? And it's usually somewhere in the neighborhood of 200. And when you look at the number of deaths that relate to firearms that are legally owned, right, like the ones that are owned legitimately and are used for recreational sporting purposes, those guns are not used in crimes. Like, I mean, the percentages are so horribly low. And when you look at it, it's even funnier when you look at the number of guns that are smuggled into this country that are used in crime. So these are people that operate completely
by criminals.
They operate completely outside the law. So they're shipping guns in illegally from the U.S. and they're selling them to their drug dealing friends. And of course, that is what has caused this, enormous rise in violence. Is we obviously have some problems with the border, and that's something that has come up a number of times in Parliament. I know Michelle Rempel, discussed the subject of illegal immigration, and without even touching that subject, I can tell you that if you have people walking across the border with big bags of clothes that probably are not being searched, you've got a number of people that are just walking into this country and they're bringing with them whatever. And there's also the illegal smuggling rings, completely dedicated to trying to bring firearms into this country illegally. And as they traverse the border, their prices go up exponentially, and they're very valuable. So those are the guns being used in the crimes. Legal owners are not using, guns in crimes. And so when back to talking to this young lady, I, made it really clear that, look, I'm not a bad guy. I just, I yell pull, a clay bird comes out of a box, I break it. Maybe
this was the 90s. We know you were shooting the side of a bus.
That is so unfair to characterize me as unsafe. That bus was a fair target back then.
Right?
And
that's not the point.
Right?
I shoot a clay bird.
Well, if you've never heard this story before, once upon a time, in a faraway magical land called the 1990s, there was a certain shooting range that actually had an old broken down bus. A lot of these shooting ranges are, outside the areas of the city, and they're in the country, and you'll see, busted down cars and stuff sometimes get left on people's properties. And this one range had a bus, and they had a bus that, was right on the range. And long before all the safety changes and, protocol changes that related to, firearms safety, before all that, guys used to put targets on the bus. And, I guess, Speed, the movie Speed had just come out, and certainly there were always going to be guys, that wanted to challenge themselves, instead of just shooting at a paper target, standing stationary, they wanted something a little more dynamic, and you could shoot on this bus at this range, which was really, by today's standards, just wouldn't fly. You can't do that kind of stuff anymore. Perhaps on a military base in a controlled environment, that's possible, but
no way.
But still, it would be dicey. Like, you'd have to be in the military to use those kind of.
The military would not let you do that.
Really? No.
No.
Well, see, but what's wrong if I have a piece of property, somebody's got 40 acres out in the middle of nowhere, and it's on their property? What's wrong with that happening? It's my property. I'm not endangering anybody.
Well, and that's
Depends
the thing.
on the shape of the property.
Yeah, and your proximity to other people.
Well, but I'm taking
like 40
that into
acres really isn't that.
It's not.
I'm just throwing
in terms of flight of bullet. It's not really that far.
No, I'm not saying right at the end of 40 acres that there's a house. I'm just saying you own 40 acres in the middle of nowhere. There's nobody around.
See, that's why I think it works in definitely in the U.S., where you might be on a property in Montana that has 400 acres, and your nearest neighbor, he loves guns, and, he shoots in your direction once in a while too. You may find, that in large sprawling areas like that, it's totally possible to safely operate firearms, especially if you, like, in today's day and age, I don't know anybody that wouldn't set up a range in their backyard without, like, creating a proper backstop. Like, most people seem to get it now. Like, shooting up into the air with a rifle is a bad thing. The 90s were a wild time. We didn't have any real semblance of what was safe and what was not. There's been so many changes, since the 80s and the 90s now. In that time, the protocol at ranges is very strict. It's all very safety oriented, and to paint me up to be the guy that shoots at buses, because that was what guys did.
We were talking about.
I know, but that would be fun.
Guys, no, but hold on, guys used to do that, of course, until the day that the owner of the gun club decided that he was going to have his lunch on the bus. And sometimes when people would shoot outside the bus into the bus, right? And so I guess somebody decided to start shooting at the bus, where the targets, they could see the targets, and the owner of the club was inside the bus having his lunch, and he came out not too happy apparently with an uneaten, half-eaten sandwich. But like, it was a different time. Like now everybody,
I bet you kick some ass, eh?
You know what? It was really a wild time back then. It was so cool. I won't mention the club's name because they're still operational, but it was a different time, and certainly so much has improved as it relates to firearm safety. Like now, you go to ranges, you have range safety officers in place. Most people are like model, members, and when it comes to obeying the rules, there's going to be the odd infraction, people make them by mistake. Opening up your case facing the wrong way. Like, I mean, when you get to the range, you put your gun case down on the line. When you open the case, and I mean, typically if you're shooting a restricted rifle, if you open the case and the lock is on, first of all, it's typically a locked case, and inside that locked case is an unloaded firearm separate from the ammunition, which is probably in another lock container
with a trigger lock.
And this unloaded firearm in a locked case also has a trigger lock on it. And when you open the case, if the rifle is not facing downrange, you run the risk of being sent home. Like, that's how strict it is. Like, I mean, and you've seen people that don't understand firearms get their hands on them every once in a while, and they'll wave them around
the
like they're toys.
Weekend guys.
Yeah, like, I'm saying though that you take people shooting that have never been around firearms, which is something I always encourage people to do. Get them out shooting. I think it's half the reason that they're not going to allow the prohibited firearms to be transported. Because you know what, they could have allowed us to transport those firearms to the range quite easily, but I truly do believe that the liberal mindset and goal is to not allow people to continue using them so they can show their friends how cool they are, right? Like how much fun it is.
How many people do you know who've gotten their license just to buy an AR?
Oh, it's crazy. Like, I mean, there are so many people that have contacted me post-ban saying, what do I do? I really wanted to own an AR-15. And it's like, there's nothing you can do.
It's
like,
too,
I mean,
it's too late now.
Until we sort out this mess, until we elect a new conservative government.
But I'm afraid to buy anything. I won't buy again.
Yeah, you know what? It's really
difficult. What's going to do these businesses? Because I won't buy anything.
Well, if they're just going to keep adding things to the list, I could totally see why people would say,
it's on my list.
Yeah, I know, absolutely.
And it's not on the list as far as I know yet, but it will be.
It will be.
And it's way too scary looking.
Yeah,
it terrifies me every time I look at it.
Yeah, but I think it's really important that people understand. As the government just arbitrarily deprives us of property, something that we've invested a lot in as gun owners, personally, financially, the therapeutic value alone connected to firearms for a lot of people. Like, how many people right now are dying to pull the trigger at the range, like just to get out of the house and to do that thing I love. Yeah, like for the gun clubs that are opening up in Southern Ontario very shortly, we're excited. Alberta, you bastards, you've been able to go the whole time. You guys out west, you know what's up. I'm definitely envious.
That's one I didn't really understand.
Well, you know what, the gun club itself lends itself well to like the social distancing. The benches, the gun
Some
clubs.
of the benches are pretty tight, but I mean, if you blocked off every second bench, you're fine. You're more than 6 feet.
Yeah,
I look at it going, even the ones that are right beside each other, you're probably close to 6 feet there anyway.
Yeah. So you know what? It didn't make any sense. Whatever. We're dealing with it now. The gun clubs are going to open up, and I know a lot of people that have asked me, I would like to shoot one of these. Their AR-15s everybody's talking about.
So is my 870 a prohib now?
You know what?
Remington 870 pump is on the list.
Is on the list.
So I have 2 prohibs now.
Yep. Yes, you do. Right, and you know what?
The fuck?
870 because it's
right?
I don't.
And I want you guys. I want you guys to imagine. Here's. Well, no. This is something that's really important for people that don't understand the firearm community, firearm culture, the impact of Canadian firearm related laws. At least their changes at the hands of these dimwits. But I can tell you that when you prohibit an item, you immediately devalue it. I mean, if it can't be sold openly on the legitimate market where people have licenses, if you can't sell these things and recover their true value, because like the 12.6 class small pistols, it's amazing. I'll use the Colt, what do they call it? Pocket. right? The tiniest.
That's
of
the
the
one where
Colts.
you pull the trigger really slowly.
Yeah, that one, right? Like that one, you know what? It's really difficult to shoot accurately. Of course, it's 25 caliber, and you know it's the pocket pistol, this little itty bitty thing, and you know it's cool. In the United States, you know, if you get a really good example, like it's beautiful Colt bluing, and you can tell it's like a little miniature 1911. It looks like it operates completely differently, but it's worth about $1,000 to $1,200 in the United States. Here in Canada, because the market has been diminished and because of the impact of law changes which make it prohibited, what it did was it devalued these items. They could still be sold amongst collectors, but what ended up happening was the prices were driven down. So now this $1,200 beautiful example of a Colt, a pocket pistol, is now in Canada worth $200. You know, which in American dollars is like, you know,
74 cents.
74 cents. Right? So it devalues our property, and a lot of people don't understand this. Just by changing a classification and restricting the number of people that can exchange this property. In the U.S., it had the total opposite effect, because machine guns down there before 1986, you know, you could import machine guns. So there was what they call non-transferable or transferable rather machine guns, true machine guns in the United States. There is a legal mechanism that allows people to own Class 3 title firearms in the United States safely, and they, you know, these people.
Here's my question: we talked about this before.
Yeah.
Can we claim political asylum in the U.S.?
I don't know. I think
We're being unjustly persecuted.
Yeah, I'm not in disagreement with you. I would suggest to you that we are, you know, definitely being mistreated. And it feels very discriminatory. I can't imagine that, you know, there isn't a human rights violation someplace.
I was just thinking
you
that.
know, at every turn, we've got the government looking at us and saying, you know what, you're to blame, you're to blame, you're to blame. It's really sad, you know, to see Canadian gun owners, like the finest people in the country, always bearing the brunt, seemingly, of law changes when we aren't responsible for what's going on out there. To have them continuously change the laws, you know, in ways that only impact us and never really solve the problem.
So
of
why
crime
are
is
they
horrible.
focusing on the long guns? Long guns aren't being used in crimes.
They want them all. That's the thing that people don't understand. See, assault rifles have right now the most negative, you know, connotation connected to them. The stigma, assault rifles, which is a misnomer. They're not assault rifles. I mean, your own experts say that they're not military grade assault rifles. There's no such thing as assault rifle, actually, to be perfectly honest. You know, like assault is not, you know, a noun. It's, you know, it's a verb. Like you have to assault somebody in order for an item to be considered assaultive item. It doesn't make any sense. But assault rifles are easy to pick on because nobody really wants to support those that doesn't understand. But I think what they've run into is so many people have been taking their friends out shooting these things that it's really, I mean, I've been going to the left places on the net and in the web. You know, people have taken their liberal friends shooting, and there's a growing number of people that have always voted liberal. They're red through and through, but they actually really like guns, and they're willing to speak up and say, like, this isn't right. Like taking property away from people, not cool. And these are typically, you know, very red parts of the net, and we're seeing a massive uptick in the number of people that are typically left leaning, that appreciate that what's going on right now isn't right. You know, hold on. You know what? I wanted to come back to something. Your thoughts, okay? Like you're an owner of an 870.
Yeah.
All right, and I'm not going to talk about any of the other guns you own other than that one. But you're an owner of an 870. It's a pump action shotgun.
So what are they like? What are they doing with like the Wingmaster? That's a duck hunting guy.
Yeah, like, you know,
like, how do you not? That makes no sense.
Well, you know,
it's what it's designed.
It's
for.
what's designed to do. Yeah,
it's right in the fucking name.
Yeah. It's frightening how easily, you know, they could push this set of laws through and then make
Mine
amendments.
has the wood stock. That's got to be okay.
Well, you know what?
Want the black ones with the pistol grip.
Yeah, you know what? Well, they're scary looking, so they're automatically more dangerous, right? But I think it's funny. People need to understand. Like, say a Winchester. Or Remington rather, 870 pump action shotgun is probably a 100-year-old design. You know, like it's not modern technology. Like it's older technology, pump action. And to have this gun that was like created specifically for the purpose, at least in your case, to hunt ducks, and then to say that these guns have no recreational purpose in the opinion of the attorney judge must be her, because like, I mean, we know that duck hunters use duck guns, and we know that, you know, competitive shooters use 3-gun type firearms in competitions. You know, they're target shooting, you know, like pistol, there's well documented, you know, events that have gone on even within policing, pistol competitions. Like, I mean, there's recreational use and enjoyment in all these firearms, and yet, you know, we're seeing them magically on the appear on this list again and again. If I didn't know better, I'd say they floated out the assault rifle ban, okay, which could easily be sold to a public that doesn't understand it, or you'd think. And then add secretly to this list beyond that, the public was given, you know, we're only going after people with assault rifles, but now it's including people that hunt, and it's including people that competitively shoot, and it's impacting businesses everywhere. Like, I mean, you could be selling a firearm that you thought was non-restricted to a licensed party and be committing a criminal offense. They've changed the FRT. The classification has changed. You might not be aware of that. This guy that sent me this turkey photo this morning, he was totally unaware that he might be out on the road with now a prohibited firearm. And if he was stopped and the officer decided to get into it enough, might run, you know, the firearm and find out that this is a prohibited device this man is out with right now. I'm sorry, sir. Like, I really don't have much choice. You're under arrest. Well, Billy Blair said, there's a tweet. Like, I mean, it's not going to get you out of a few hours sitting in a holding cell while you wait for some paperwork to get typed up. I mean, he might give you a summons on the spot, but he's not going to let you leave with your gun. You know, like, you violated the law. You're out in public with that gun that you shouldn't have. Let's go back to your house. All right, you're going to be potentially up for a review. We'll have a prohibition hearing to determine whether or not you should be allowed to keep your firearms, seeing as you're out in public with a prohibited one. And so they seize your whole collection. They load it up into shopping carts. Everything gets scratched up that you own. And that's the way it happens. You know, you'll be out
what am I
there.
gonna do with all my 223 ammunition?
I don't know. You'll have to find a use. I didn't think you had any left. I think we burned it up the last time you and I were out. Yeah. You may have to go find some.
Didn't it go down in the boat with the rest of everything else?
You know what? No, he sold it to Mike from Canmore. One half. We shot the other half.
I feel bad. I didn't mean to sell him my 870.
You know, it happens, right?
I wasn't
doing
enough duck hunting.
Every man hits a point in his life where he's got to thin the herd a little bit and go into a safe and determine what he wants and what he doesn't. But then, you know what? So here we are.
You got to track those down. How many 870s do you think there are in Canada?
Oh my God! They got to be one of the most popular shotguns ever.
Well, they're cheap. It's a $500 gun,
and they work.
And they work.
And they go bang every time.
They work. They work well enough, right, that the police have adopted them and they've been in use for like 8 years.
Is the Mossberg 500 on that list then too?
You know, honestly, I glanced at the list and I went, you know, they're just going to keep adding to it. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter what's on the list. I tell people I don't care what's on the list. You want to know why? Right? Like, I mean, I've clearly looked up a few items specifically. There was some debate over whether or not Maccabee was on that list. We, you know, all wondered why he was notably, you know, off it in the first.
It is iteration. Now, apparently.
It's on it now. You know, and I've talked to Wyatt, you know, about the subject before. Wyatt, you know, has expressed to be his disappointment. You know, to put it lightly, here's a Canadian family that has worked very hard to operate within the confines of the law and develop a firearm that the RCMP themselves had to approve as being a viable sporting purpose platform.
I bet you this guy's sketchy. I don't think I want to meet him. He must be, because he's making these prohibited guns.
Right?
He's got to be the devil.
The devil himself.
Yeah.
Right. If you met Wyatt, you'd love him.
I can't meet him. He's the devil.
I can't meet him.
He created. You know what? He created a non-restricted platform, right, that accepts, you know, AR-15 components.
But it's prohibited now.
Well, now it's prohibited.
So he is the devil. He was okay before.
Oh yeah.
But now, devil.
Oh yeah. Oh no. You know what? I was one of those guys that I had a 12.6 license, and I let my license lapse. My father fell ill, and there was a move involved.
The devil.
And you know what? But I had owned 12.6 firearms for, at that point, 20 years. I think it was. Well, maybe a little less. But I'd owned them up until that point for a decade plus, and overnight, because I forgot to renew on time, and there was a bit of an issue there. I lost that 12.6 license, and so now I found myself in possession of something that had to be turned in, and I did that. And it was my own fault, but like overnight, I went from somebody you could trust for a decade plus that was never a problem to someone that could go to jail. And that obviously could not be trusted anymore.
I've always considered you to be a little sketchy.
Yeah, sure. You know what? We could play the what if game. I want to carry on the conversation if you don't mind. Motorcycles, we touched on that one. Let's talk about things like pools.
Well,
right?
Kill
Pools.
more people than guns every year, I think.
Oh, I think a lot more people die in swimming accidents and drownings in pools. Certainly, the number of children that have died. I've gone to my fair share.
Stay out of my pool.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you know what? But it's safe to say.
I keep an electric fence around my pool. Keep the riffraff away.
You know what? See, the idea that people would need a swimming pool. You don't need a swimming pool. You don't need one.
No.
Right? You know what? People die every year in swimming pools.
Yeah, so do squirrels.
You know what? There's accidents, right? There's accidents that happen. Oh, yeah. You know what? You can't be trusted. I'm sorry. Like, it doesn't matter if you have a fence around your pool. That's what we do. We regulate it. You try and make it as safe as possible. You put a fence around your pool.
A fence around your yard is no longer good. You need a fence within a fence.
Oh yeah,
that's right. For pools, yeah,
right. So there's certain safety precautions taken in regulations.
I wonder if there's ever been a fine issued for failing to have a fence within a fence within a fence.
I'm sure.
To have a pool.
I'm sure people drive around looking for infractions, or neighbors report on one another.
I think it's more of the 1-800-RAT you out.
Yeah. And you know what? That's something that I found interesting with this COVID season. The number of people that could get into arguments.
The rat line.
The rat line. If it wasn't bad enough that we're dealing with a government that has gone so far to the left that they're also, doing their best to control the media, and they've instituted the use of, a hotline to give people the ability to tell on their neighbors.
I'm in favor of ratting everybody out.
Yeah?
Yep. Oh, yeah. I have for everything.
You're going to get hate mail.
I think you should just... You know what? I saw a guy speeding. I should be able to issue a ticket for speeding on my phone while I'm driving, because I'm special. So I think there should be an app where I go like a ticket, and I send that guy a ticket.
The world according to King John.
Dictator.
Dictator.
Justin Trudeau is a big fan of dictatorships. So if he hears this, maybe he will appoint me dictator with an order in council, and then I can fix all this fucked up shit instantly.
Well, you know what?
Can you appoint a dictator with an order in council? Is that within the scope?
Oh, well, you can have somebody sit in your place and deal with all the tough questions and look foolish. You can get Krista Freeland to be the deputy Prime Minister of the country while you go inside your cuckoo clock and hide for 60 days plus. Right?
It is.
Unbelievable. You know what? I'm gonna get a little rowdy for a second. I cannot believe that our leader has been hiding inside his house for 60 plus days. It's crazy. No other leader in the world is hiding like this, and he's coming out to address his kingdom. Right, filled with reporters that will not ask crappy questions. Right,
well,
there's this
guy. If you
guy.
ask a bad question, you're banned.
You're banned. Oh, you know what? You can see the look. Right, he when somebody asks him a pointed question and he presses his lip together. Right, the amount of physical things that I see on Justin Trudeau in terms of like body language. It's funny when he squints his eyes and presses his lips together for a smile after he answers a question that he doesn't like. You know that reporter is never coming back again. You could see it on his face. Bite your tongue. You know what? And I hear behind closed doors.
Did they disappear? Totally?
Well, who knows?
There was a boating accident.
There was a boating accident. They got Clintoned. Speaking of which, things look like they're heating up down in the USA. I know that there's a lot of people that get down on me. You know what? I talk about this once in a while. I don't give a shit what people think. I like Trump. I do. I really like Trump. And you know what? You could say he's unpresidential. You could say he's brash. You could say he says things he should not say. Whatever. He's actually driven. And I know you feel that it's not the case.
He's a buffoon.
Oh, you know what? I know you don't like him. That's fine. You don't have to like him.
I just can't listen to him.
Well, you know what? I listen to him before I listen to Justin Trudeau every day.
He does. He's doing what he said he was going to do.
He's doing what he said he was going to do. He's doing all the things he was elected on.
Listen to his bullshit tweets.
Yeah, you know what?
Well, that's
I don't listen. My wife tells me about all the stupid shit he says, so
Yeah.
I get an earful even when I don't give a fuck.
Oh, so you're one of those people that you're taking someone else's word for it.
I'm listening. She reads these tweets to me just because she knows it drives me nuts.
Yeah. No. Just
Stop
getting a little
touching my cord.
The static. Is it just a little? I could hear it through the headphones. You had a little static. You know, stop shaking the mic. This is exactly why. Right? I don't invite you on the show more often. All right, no, you know what? So, but you know what? Honestly, Donald Trump. No, you're good. Donald Trump. He at least is doing what he said he was going to do. He may go down in history as the only president in history to do what he said he was going to do, and
he doesn't
they hate
go
him
about
for
it
it.
very diplomatically.
Well, he doesn't.
But he's never been that way.
Okay, so but Donald Trump, you know what? No matter what, he's doing what he said he was going to do. Okay, quite honestly, there's some debate about it, but you know what though? The economy has never been better. The unemployment rates are low, even if they are shitty jobs. I know how you feel about this, John. But I mean, ultimately, I hear a lot of people shrugging. Well, they shrug their shoulders and they go, well, you know, I hate Trump. Why? Like I'm asking them, like legitimately, like I'm not saying he's good.
Because he doesn't fit the mold of your typical politician.
Well, he says racial things. You know, it's like, well, can you give me an example? It's like, well, no, I heard he did. And it's like
conversation's over.
Yeah, like well, have you ever seen him do anything that's really kind of like I've been watching the guy for a while, and you could say whatever you want about the guy. You know, he was on a reality TV show, so he does seem a little cartoonish at times. But listen, right? But no, the bad orange man. Like I just feel that there's this sea of
looks like a cheesy.
This sea of people out there that
no way that's natural, is it?
Oh,
no, you else want to put him in a room for like 6 weeks and see what he comes out looking like.
He'll be pale. He'll be pale. He likes to look like he has color. Whatever. My grandmother would say, "Hello, it's okay." That's the young people's. She'd say, right?
It's a young people.
Yeah. These young people. That's all. Right? I was raised Italian. My parents and my grandparents, they watched politics, and I always found it boring because I didn't really understand, and I still don't in many respects. But
soul cancer. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's difficult to watch, and for everybody out there that has wondered, I can watch as much as I can watch. I think if we had a last man standing pool, who could watch Justin Trudeau speak the longest and the most days consecutively?
I think about 37 seconds.
I'd be out right. I'll tap out before it even starts.
Well, thank Christ, right? The Canadian gun vault has the intestinal fortitude, right, to stare at a TV screen. I feel sometimes like I need toothpicks.
Think you're just too dumb to realize how dumb it is.
No. I realize how dumb it is. I just don't have the luxury of looking away. Like that's part of what I do now.
You can watch the first 30 seconds. It's just the same loop.
Yeah, it is. A lot of it is.
It's and you know what?
Here's the thing though about Trump is Trump didn't just change overnight once he became president. Trump was Trump before he got elected president. So all of a sudden, those people that wanted to stay at his hotels and all the celebrities that wanted pictures with him before he was president and was still the same dude, all of a sudden now we're coming out and denouncing him? Why?
Well, just the amount of effort.
He hasn't changed.
I know, but I want to say something just to add to your point because I think it's wonderful.
Is it wonderful?
It's wonderful. No, it's a good point, right? No, but
I would go so far as to say glorious.
Glorious. Listen,
glorious.
No.
Breathtaking, perhaps.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's Keanu used the word breathtaking. Don't tarnish it.
I didn't know he used the word. Lots of people,
right? No, listen.
Keanu say we should have Keanu on here.
You know what? He'd be awesome.
He's a gun guy.
We
should bring him on.
You know what? I'll invite him. I doubt that I'll be able to get him out here.
I think he will. Tell him I want to talk to him.
Here we go again. Right? The world according to King John. You know what? I'll put it out there. Right? If Keanu Reeves wants to be
awesome,
if Keanu Reeves wants to be on the show, I'll invite his ass out here in the heartbeat. I'd love to meet John Wick. I'd love to meet Neo. He's been, you know what? This guy has played some of the greatest heroes in cinematic
and
history.
He's a solid dude.
And he's solid and he loves guns.
Yeah, well, he can come see my Prohib collection.
Oh, God. Yeah. Guess what? Yeah, if you were ever a gun owner between the years of 1996 and, you know, present day, it was always really cool to come across the Prohib owners. Oh, so you were the guys that used to be able to enjoy those full autos. Like, you come across a 12-2 guy, it's like, hey, you're one of them.
You got to kiss his ring?
Yeah, they're like the Godfathers, right?
If you see somebody with a 12 now,
what's that?
All the Prohibs that you were allowed to keep before. What are they doing?
I don't know. Well, you know,
those on the new list?
There's only 274 of those guys left. So I mean, like it's a relatively low number now of people that are holding those licenses. But I can tell you that when you're a Prohib owner and you see that 12, you know, bracket something in on the back of someone's license, and you know, it's an automatic sign of respect because they've been in the game long enough to see the last batch of bands. And you know, for me, it's always cool to run into some of these guys, you know, but it's not cool though to have them tell you can't use these items. And anybody that doesn't know, you know, historically there's been grandfathering granted to people that owned items legally prior to any changes of law. So that's the standard practice, is typically to let people keep the guns that they've owned legally for you know, quite some time. They've operated, they've obviously proven that they're responsible and safe, that they haven't done anything wrong with these guns. They were allowed typically to keep them and continue to use them until, of course, the Liberals came along and just in this mean, spirited, spiteful move told people you could keep them, but you couldn't take them to the range anymore. You know, and that's
little kids.
Yeah, that's like a real shot in the nuts to anybody out there that's been told, like, yeah, you can keep it, but it's a paperweight. Can't do it. You can't do anything with it. You can't enjoy it the way that you intended to. And that's something that they've always been very fond of in the Liberal camp. Is not only are we going to take it from you, but like we're going to take, you won't be able to use it anymore. Okay, you can keep it, but you can never shoot it and enjoy it again. And that stops people from sharing it with others, you know, to be able to demonstrate how firearms can be used safely and operated safely and have some legitimate sporting purpose is by confining their roles, you know, like that.
Is there going to be a mechanism for us to get them out of the country?
You know, I imagine that they will stop the exportation of to ensure that they, you know, as soon as they figure it out, the guys were trying to get him out of the country. I think you're better off trying to get him to Alberta. But it looks like the guys out there know what's up. They're going to appoint their own CFO that is going to not pursue charges relating to these latest changes in bullshit law. So, I mean, they know what's up out west.
There? Like, the RCMP can still come deal with you, right?
Yeah, well, it's federal laws, so they can. But, I mean, now you're talking the local police are not supportive. Like go to a place like Winnipeg, and you know Winnipeg's finest got up there, 27-year veteran, and he said there is absolutely no public benefit to the banning of firearms. No, it wasn't the chief. No, it wasn't the chief. I spoke to this gentleman on the phone. I believe his name's Bobby Parker, if memory serves me correctly. But he came up there and he was very nervous. You could hear it in his voice. And you know what? I told him very clearly. I said, you know, I called him up. And I don't know this man. And I asked for him, and he got on the phone with me, and I recognized his voice. And I said, sir, you know, my name is Mark Morelli, and just to make you aware, I'm a retired police officer. And, you know, I spoke to him a little bit about my credentials for a moment. I just said to him, you know what, just so you know, I'm not a complete asshole. That's the only reason I bring these things up.
Just a partial asshole?
All right, only partial. All right. Yeah, well, I qualified it by saying, depending on who you ask.
So is there a percentage here?
And he chuckled, all right? You know, and once I got that guy on the phone, right, I'm talking to him, and again, I think it's Constable Parker, and I said to him, I said, good for you. On behalf of all the firearm community, we'd like to thank you for getting up there and speaking the truth, sir. And, you know, it's not easy. I heard your voice shake, you know, a little bit. And he said, well, I was kind of wondering if I was going to have a job, you know, the next day. And he kind of chuckled, but you knew that he had gone against the grain. He had made some people unhappy by telling the truth, which is a real shame. We should be able to trust our police to tell us the truth. And he was under some pressure. But I congratulated him on a job very well done, and I told him that he always has friends in Ontario, and that I look forward to the day that I'll shake his hand. And he thanked me, and he was actually quite good about it. We had a little bit more conversation. I hung up the phone, and I realized there was a good cop that was willing to speak the truth, even though his voice shook. You know, like it was a hard one. And so I'm really proud of that guy, and I'm proud of all the police. You know, we've got that.
Is he retired now?
Yeah, I wonder.
I'm just wondering.
I wonder. But you know, it's really important that we discuss this one. I'm seeing a giant show of support from policing, despite what you may read in the news. There is a movement afoot in law enforcement across the country that don't agree with the idea of seizing property from people that have committed no crimes. And to know that law enforcement are behind us, you know, I definitely would reach out to your peers and your colleagues, to all the men and women in law enforcement, make them aware of what's happening, how it's wrong, and, you know, speak your voice.
Sign the damn petitions.
Yeah.
Don't give me the horse shit. They come and try and take them. That's bullshit. What all you're going to do is die and maybe kill somebody else. That's stupid. Yeah. Don't say those words. You just look like an idiot. Sign the effing petition. Don't be a retard.
Sign the petition. Find a conservative. Support the Conservative Party, and then there's mechanisms that can get us what we need to.
Yeah, and write the Queen.
Can overturn it. Write the Queen.
Can we write the? We should.
You know what?
A mass writing to the Queen. Huh?
Do you think?
Well, she owns all our shit.
Yeah, I know. We're complaining.
Maybe we got to go above it to the Queen.
You know,
what would happen if 100,000 letters went to the Queen? What would happen?
You know what?
I mean, would it get somebody's attention?
You know what? I'm
I
willing.
can see the Queen shoots.
You know what? That's right.
The Queen shoots.
That's right. I saw her with that famous photo of her with that L85. Or what was it? Was that British bullpup gun, or is it the L82? I can't. You know what? I always get
whatever it is. It's a gun.
It's a gun. Yeah, but that's right. She's. You know what? You know what? I would consider. I wonder what would happen if you know a few 100,000 letters landed on the Queen's doorstep.
I'm pretty sure the Queen could take Justin Trudeau, no problem. We put him in the cage.
Well, listen,
coming out crying.
You know what?
For sure.
You're probably right, because they both sit down to pee, and the Queen's probably got all those years of experience.
Oh, the Queen would take him easy.
Done. My money's on.
She's a hard old bird.
My money's
Liz.
on the monarchy.
Liz.
Yeah.
Yeah. My money's on it. I'll put money on it right now.
You know what?
The cage match. That'd be the cage
match of the
Pay-per-view.
century. Maybe we get Joe Rogan to kick it off.
They could probably earn enough money to buy all our guns back.
Yeah. You know, and that's another thing. You know what? For anybody listening, whether you like guns or not, I mean, if you just look at the situation very objectively, the crime guns that are being used in acts of violence in our city streets are not being owned by legal gun owners. What the government's proposing is that they use your tax dollars, billions, it's going to be billions of your taxpayers' dollars, and a draw on police resources to do it, to take back guns that will never be used in crimes. Now, what I'm going to suggest as an alternative is to take all that money, take $6 billion, because they're going to definitely go way over budget. They say it's going to be 250.
Register them for $2 billion.
Yeah, you can't even register them all for $2 billion. They're going to take all these guns, seize them, store them, and then destroy them, and all the administrative bullshit that comes along with it. They're going to spend $6 billion of your dollars guaranteed. Why don't we take all that money instead and give it to policing, hire more police officers, or send police out in droves to buy back the illegal guns that are on the streets? They don't care.
How about strengthen the borders, or put a little bit more boots on the street and investigative powers into cracking down and defeating the smuggling operations that are getting them into the country?
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Absolutely. It's, you know what, it's like trying to stop a mosquito from going through a chain link fence. I mean, like it's pretty difficult. It's a long unprotected border. You know, if Trump built a wall, it wouldn't surprise me these days. I'm sure he by now has determined that, you know, Canada's a little unfriendly company, you know, in China, you know, maybe operating on Canadian soil. Did you see about that?
What about how Justin Trudeau has contracted the Chinese military to develop a vaccine for COVID-19?
No.
How about that one?
I'll be first to get that one.
Yeah.
Right.
What could possibly go wrong?
Sign me up.
So, you know what?
Hold on. Let me be the tester.
Yeah. Well, you were the first person to volunteer to get the coronavirus, I remember back then. You're like, I'll have it. Then when I've had it, then I've already had it. And then I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Bob Durant.
You know, but what they're determining is people are getting it multiple times, that it's just kind of circulating around.
Well, that's what happens when you engineer a virus.
That's right. Then anybody that thinks that this thing still came from a wet market outside of China, no, it was in all likelihood developed in a lab. And of course, the Canadian government was debriefed by the intelligence community. Months.
Pants were pulled down?
Yeah. No.
Okay. Debriefed. Debriefed.
That's what happens every time that Trudeau gets together with Trump.
Oh,
is it Sam? Or is it Phil?
It's Sam. It's Sam, and you know what? I'll call Sam back later. He's funny, right? He must know I'm thinking about him. All right, I've been hoping to get together with Sam. You know what? Because Sam the Cannon Man might be affected by this new law, right? I mean, cannons. Think about it. Right, like I mean, there's another thing that they've screwed up. They put it into law that this 20 millimeter rule. It now encompasses shotguns. It will include some black powder cannons. Like I mean, this government is famous for screwing things up while they write legislation and they make it vague and open to interpretation. Like I mean, it really is.
It's absolutely done on purpose so they can apply at will.
Yeah,
to their liking.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the MO of this government. To do stuff like that. Oh. Just looking at the time, I don't know if you got to be any place. You okay?
Oh, I got to be at home to cook dinner.
Okay, all right. See, yeah, no, the man's got responsibilities.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, so just before we wrap up, I'm thinking that we're going to discuss one last thing. I think that it's really important. We've certainly sat down with members of the hunting community and the sportsmen that bust clays. It's really important. There's a lot of people out there that don't use email addresses, and they don't use computers that are in this game, and they don't even know it. I think it's really important that everybody reach out to the older members of the community and to speak to your friends that may be hunters and tell them to tell their friends that something's going on in law that might have an impact on them. And I really want to emphasize how important it is that we all collectively get our asses together on this one, because this is the one for all the marbles.
And this is going to be the week for it, because as soon as those ranges open, people are going to be flocking because to do what they love doing.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a prime opportunity to have those conversations, saying, hey, did you hear? Did you see what happened on Friday? And a whole bunch of others, and just letting people know. Now, to address one of the points that you made, those older people, a lot of the older folks don't even have an email.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a bit of a challenge, because there's no hard copy to this petition. It's all electronic. So
well, here's what I'm going to suggest. If you're at a gun club and you're running the gun club, if you can have a terminal handy, and if you can have somebody who's computer savvy, create an email address for those older guys.
That's the only going to be the only avenue for some of them.
What I'm going to suggest is, when the doors open and people start coming through, and have your Lysol wipes handy, because we all got to be sanitary. But you know what? You're going to have to create an opportunity for people to vote for this petition. And there's a lot of people that feel the petitions are useless. I don't care what anybody says. If there's 500,000+ signatures on a piece of paper, or electronically, saying that these people want to have their voices heard, it's really difficult to ignore that.
Not Justin Trudeau.
Like, I mean, anybody would have to say, like, whoa, hold on a second. There's 1 million signatures on it. 1 million Canadians think that there's something wrong.
But that's all fake.
Oh, yeah.
Russian hackers did that.
Oh,
the Russian hackers.
Yeah, well,
there was only 4 Canadians that supported.
Yeah,
the rest were Russian hackers.
Yeah. So you know what? What I'm going to suggest is every gun store and every gun club have a dedicated terminal and somebody that knows how to generate emails. And for the people that don't have email addresses, give them the opportunity to express themselves and vote for those petitions. And everybody that comes into the club that is told what is going on, that may not disagree with it, should sign the petitions. And we can also, once an email is created for them, right, give them all the information, their password and their email address, and send a copy of the petition to them so that they can share it with their new friends. All right, we're gonna win this by getting the word out there and making people aware. There's so many people that just don't know what's going on. I love the idea of 2.5 million license holders and their families and their friends jumping on board this. We could create potentially a voting block that would be absolutely devastating, no matter how much they rig the game. So if you want to make a difference, definitely tell your friends, your family, your colleagues, anybody that you know that, hunts and engages, in the recreational use of firearms that may not be aware of what's going on. Contact them, share the petitions with them, and definitely let's get the word out there what's happening. I took an opportunity, when I was out in public, speaking to a couple of close friends that had no idea what was going on. You would be amazed what 15 or 20 minutes of brief conversation can do, for people that are unaware of what's happening. I had two people. I was out the other night, and I spoke to two people that feel passionately, and we talked on this subject for like 2 seconds. They both obviously felt that no government was a good choice, and they said they hadn't voted in like a decade. I haven't voted like the last 3 times. And it's like you have to. And so after about a 20-minute conversation, I looked at both of them and I said, look, I look at this stuff every day. I love this country. You have to just trust me. This is the most important election in Canadian history. Please cast your vote.
Potentially could be, yeah.
All right. And I just wanted to impress upon them how important it was, not just for guns, but for the economy, for everything. It's really important that you vote this next election and you get everybody out to vote.
I agree.
All right.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, you know what? I think we're going to call it a day here. I don't want to imagine people are going to want to listen to us for
200,000.
Oh,
Yeah.
she cracked 200,000.
Yeah,
so
it
Michelle Rempel's
went over
petition
200
just
today.
cracked 200,000. For the people who haven't signed the second petition that was initiated by Todd Doherty, Conservative member of Parliament. It was at 40.
Yep.
Make sure you sign that one too. I mean, if we bring a total, of millions of signatures, if we pool them all together, to bring those numbers to the attention of the other members of Parliament, that petition, by all measures, should stop what's going on right now. When you've got that many Canadians that are in direct opposition to the way you're conducting yourself as a government, something should be done.
200,000, 100,000.
Oh, well, I can tell you right now, if it was a number that worked in their favor, they would be toting that number out all over the place. And for the media groups that haven't taken the time to talk about the fastest growing signed e-petition in Canadian history, for all you guys out there,
which was surpassed by the last one we did.
Yeah, exactly. That they ignored. Yeah, you know what? To all you guys out there in the media that aren't covering the fastest growing, most signed petitions in Canadian history, shame on you. Your bias is showing. It's frightening.
Well, they had 75 signatures to get the bands going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Whatever the hell it was. Something, the most obscene, whatever it was.
Yeah, they had this pathetic turnout of something like 23,000 wanting more bans. But, we got to listen to that. It's like everything else. It's whatever they want to hear and what they, are willing to tolerate.
Well, the fact that it has garnered 200,000 signatures in 2 weeks, and the petition closes somewhere towards the end of September. There's no reason between now and then why we can't get close to 1 million, if not 1 million.
I see 1 million as being the goal.
Once people find out about that.
Yep, let's get that.
Every duck hunter. But
then, know a guy who's got one.
But then what about those guys with the $15,000 Krieghoffs that have to leave it in their safe now? They're equally just going to be as pissed.
The government of Canada will give you a solid $1,000 for that.
Oh yeah, good luck getting anywhere close to what you paid for it.
Yeah, so I mean,
that's not bad. How much do you really want? I mean, it's just metal.
Oh yeah.
What's the scrap value of metal? We'll just like $80 a ton. We'll pay you for it.
Yeah.
That'll really cut the cost of the buyback program.
Frightening that
I have a good plan.
You know what?
Dictator John, he knows.
Dictator John.
Dick John. Right? Hey, all right. So listen, you know what? I'm going to call it quits on this one. There's another pot of coffee on, and I'm dying to get into it. Anyway, John, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us here today. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, it was nice to meet Coach Nick finally. First time we've met.
And
then we could both gang up on you and make fun of you simultaneously.
That's the best part.
Yeah.
Screw you.
That was the highlight of my week.
Yeah, that's why. You know what? This is why I sat over on this side of the couch. I knew it was going to turn into that. That's okay.
You should have wore your Kevlar.
I can. You know what? I can keep my eye on both you. And Coach Nick, thank you so much for joining me again.
Yeah, always a good time. Again,
right.
John, great meeting you. Hopefully next time we'll be able to do this, all three of us in the backyard in front of a fire. The weather didn't really cooperate today too much, but next time maybe early evening with some beverages and...
Afraid of a little rain?
Yes.
You're soft.
Thank you.
I said it before.
I'm
John
not gonna
did.
say.
John was gonna say it.
Just to be honest with you, like in the lockdown thing, I gained 16 pounds.
Did you really?
16 pounds.
Oh, yeah, it's not hard.
I was baking bread every day.
Oh,
Were
geez.
you?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
I got the sourdough going.
Awesome.
I'm pounding it back.
You're talking about the bread.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Other things too. I'm out, but I gotta stop on the way home.
You know what? Shopping chips. All right. Okay, guys. Thank you again. It's been a terrific podcast. We hope you've enjoyed it. Big shout out to Colin Noir, all right, for putting out a T-shirt line dedicated to the Canadian firearm rights struggle. All right, I saw that and I was quite impressed. Apparently, we've garnered the attention of some of the biggest names in 2A self-defense firearm use in the United States. It's amazing. Like Colin Noir has started a T-shirt line that revolves around Canadian firearm ownership and what we got going on right now.
Yeah,
And,
let's just hope that word continues to spread down there. We get a little bit more support.
You know what? I love the idea. It's keep Canada tactical.
Yeah.
That's it. And you know what? It's definitely a winner. I would encourage people to get over to a site and purchase some of those. Great show of support for the firearm community, and definitely we're crossing some borders here.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm really excited about that.
We need their support.
Definitely.
We do.
Well, we're all.
They don't want us. Look what happened in Canada. It worked out fine there.
Yeah.
Oh, why don't we do it here?
Yeah.
I mean, in New Zealand, that's way over there. It's an ocean away.
Yeah.
That's different people, different culture. It doesn't translate.
Yeah.
Now, next door neighbor,
Yeah.
it's a little different story.
Yeah.
So, U.S. people have our backs here. Come on, we got yours.
Absolutely. All right, folks. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to us on YouTube and on Instagram. And as always, Canada, don't forget to shoot straight. Stay safe.